Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating and honestly deeply moving psychological journey. We're going to look inside the minds and the deeply rooted behaviors of highly self-reliant individuals. You know the kind of people I'm talking about, right? Those folks who seem to have absolutely everything together on the outside, but underneath they're running on an entirely different operating system. We're going to explore the psychology of a child who grew up way too fast and understand exactly why their nervous systems are wired the way they are.
Okay, let's dive into this. Some children don't lose their childhood suddenly. They outgrow it quietly. Wow, right? This is such a powerful realization to start us off. As the psychology points out, losing your childhood isn't always marked by some grand dramatic event. It's not like someone sits these kids down and formally says, "All right, you're an adult now." Instead, there's just this quiet, unspoken realization that someone in the room has to be responsible. And, well, it might as well be them.
Section 1. The quiet loss of childhood. This marks the first psychological phase of the adaptation journey, a subtle shift from childhood innocence to sudden, unspoken responsibility. Section 2. Parentification and extreme independence. Here we shift from the emotional catalyst right into the clinical psychology behind these survival mechanics.
So there's actually a clinical term for what's happening here: parentification. This happens when a child is expected to manage emotions, whether those are their own intense emotions or the completely unpredictable emotions of the adults around them, long before they're developmentally ready to do so. This is established psychology, folks. When faced with this immense, overwhelming pressure, the young brain does what it literally has to do to survive. It adapts, and it does that by actively suppressing its own needs.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how that adaptation process happens. Step 1, stay calm. Step 2, solve problems. Step 3, feelings come last. When you meet a highly capable, serious child, they weren't just born with this innate, stoic strength. No way! They became strong because in their environment, there was simply no other option available to them. It was step up or fall apart.
Developmental psychology shows us how this directly links to the symptoms of early self-reliance. You see, when kids can't rely on consistent support from the people who are supposed to care for them, they are practically forced into extreme independence. And the symptoms? They're stark. They completely stop asking for help. They abandon all expectations of ever receiving comfort, and they handle everything entirely alone, even in situations where it is completely unnecessary for them to do so. What this creates in adulthood is a profound dissonance. To the rest of the world, these individuals look incredibly capable, perfectly composed, and totally in charge. They look like they've got it all figured out. But internally, they're actively struggling to trust any kind of support. Why? Because their early experiences taught them that support is only ever temporary and fleeting. This, right here, is why understanding the specific adaptation matters so much. Section 3. Split maturity and uneasy rest. Let's move to and see how this builds into an internal conflict between capability and emotional chaos. Because their emotional development was heavily rushed, psychology explains that we see a fascinating split between what matured early and what remained unmet. On one hand, these individuals are often remarkably wise, serious, and highly responsible for their age. Yet, at the exact same time, they feel deeply confused, guilty, and emotionally unfulfilled inside. It's kind of like a giant puzzle with missing pieces. Why? Because they literally never had the time or the safe environment to learn how to need others safely. Now pay very close attention to this next concept. For these individuals, rest equals neglect or danger. Because of the chronic stress adaptation they went through in childhood, their nervous system is hardwired to stay constantly alert. Doing nothing doesn't feel relaxing. Doing nothing feels incredibly dangerous. Their brain is screaming at them to stay active. They feel extremely uneasy when they're still, and they only feel truly useful when they are actively needed by someone else. Think about the pattern they lived through. It goes like this. First, things are calm. Next, something goes inevitably wrong. Therefore, later on, doing nothing is learned as dangerous. It's a survival loop. Their past environment taught them over and over again that moments of calm were merely the quiet before the storm. It was just a brief pause before the next crisis hit. Section 4. Guilt and guarded empathy. Let's transition into the interpersonal consequences of these childhood adaptations and how they seriously complicate adult social connections. Rooted deeply in attachment research is this core driving belief. If I'm being taken care of, someone else is being burdened. So the crucial point is, this makes them feel an immense sense of guilt for having any needs at all.
They constantly minimize their own existence simply to avoid being perceived as a burden to anyone else. It's absolutely heartbreaking when you think about it. And here is a rapid list of how that guilt actually plays out in their adult behaviors. They'll continuously apologize for wanting even the most basic support. They feel an intense, almost irrational guilt for resting, asking for help, or depending on anyone. And perhaps most tragically of all, receiving care actually feels foreign to them. It doesn't feel comforting at all. It feels completely alien. But, there is a flip side to this early maturation, which psychology refers to as guarded empathy. Growing up too fast sharpens your emotional awareness to an incredible degree. These individuals can instantly sense subtle shifts in mood. They anticipate problems before they even happen, and they read people incredibly quickly. But it's a double-edged sword. This incredibly sharp emotional awareness is protected by thick barriers. They have to remain guarded because they know exactly how high the cost of caring without protection can be. Section 5. From Pressure to Healing. Let's slow the pace down a bit here and transition into a powerful, validating reframe of these traits. If you relate to what we've covered today, hear this. Psychology does not call you broken. You are not broken. Your nervous system simply did what it was designed to do. It adapted to intense early pressure. You are a brilliant survivor of your environment. Absolutely brilliant.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we need to redefine what healing actually means. Healing is not about becoming weak. It's a progression. Look at the steps. You learned responsibility before safety. You learned strength before softness. Healing simply means learning that you are, at long last, allowed to rest. As we conclude this explainer, I want to leave you with a final question to reflect on. Did you grow up responsible for more than a child ever should? And are you still carrying that weight?